All right, this is session A dot. Oh, where there it is. A04 modernization, Informix CP4D, and whatever that word is, Kubernetes operators.
Awesome. I will start the presentation now.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Javier Sagrera. I'm part of the Informix APD team in the UK HCL lab. For the last 2 years, I've been working as one of the lead developers integrating Informix into the IBM Cloud for Data platform. Before that, I was mainly focused on the tool side of Informix, covering nearly every client, from the old classics like CI 704GL to the new open source drivers like Python or Node.js. Today I'm going to talk about the new Informix CP4D release and our 2 new Informix operators. These are the topics we are going to cover. A quick introduction to the IBM Cloud for Data, what's new in the CP4D 4.0, the IBM operator catalog, our 2 new Informix operators and how to use them to create Informix instances, and finally a quick look at what's coming in the next releases of CP4D. For anyone not familiar with CP4D, CP4D stands for IBM Cloud for Data. Cloud packs are a set of containerized software. They are IBM's approach to hybrid cloud. Currently, there are 6 cloud packs, but they keep evolving and the name keeps changing every couple of years. Right now, we have a Cloud Pack for Data, Cloud Pack for Business Automation, Cloud Pack for Watson AI, for application integration, for network and security. Cloud Packs runs on wherever Red Hat OpenShift runs, like IBM Cloud, Azure, AWS, and some other platforms. And as you may guess, the one that most matters to us is Cloud Pack for Data, or CP4D. What is new in CP4D 4.0? 4.0 is the latest version of CP4D. It is the 7 major versions as the first release. Between each major versions, IBM releases refreshes with minor updates and fixes. The latest refresh is 4.0.2. The main change from previous CP4D versions is that in 4.0, everything is done with operators. You no longer have to use CPD CLI or repo YAML files to install or uninstall services or CP4D. Now what you do is to create a CR, a custom resource object, in your cluster, and an operator will do all the work for you. Operators are software extensions to the Kubernetes API. Basically, operators are pieces of software that is the operational complexity of running another piece of software inside Kubernetes. They add extra functionality to the standard API to create and manage applications. When you install an operator, you will get a controller and a new set of CRDs and CRs. The CR, custom resource, represents an instance of your application. In our case, an Informix server instance. The CRDs, or custom resource definitions, describes the CR and all the different configuration options that you can use. And finally, the controller, which is just a bot which constantly monitors the state of the cluster, looking for changes to the CR that controls. Whenever it finds a change, like a new CR was created or a CR configuration option was updated, it performs the action needed to make the current state match the desired state for that resource. Basically, to make sure that the CR is what you are asking to be. With 4.0, you can install CP4D in your cluster by creating a single CI object. IBM CPD represents a CP4D instance. The only details that you need is the namespace where you want CP4D to be installed and the type of storage, the storage class, in this case, the storage vendor. The Cloud Pack for Data operator will detect that a new CR was created, a new IBM CPD object was created, and it will install all the CP4D components into the CP4D instance. Because now everything in CP4D is based on operators, one of the first steps that you need to do is to enable the IBM operator catalog within the operator hub. This catalog contains all the IBM Cloud App operators, including the two operators needed to run Informix within CP4D. The way to do it is by creating a catalog object source, pulling the IBM catalog image. You can see at the bottom, ICR.IOCP open is the new repository where IBM keeps all the free Docker images, like operators and catalog. Eventually, this operator will replace the old Docker IBM com repository. The IBM.biz link is just a shortcut to the documentation section for the instructions on how to create the IBM catalog. So after you imported this catalog, you will be able to find the Informix and all the CP4D operators in your operator hub. To be able to integrate with the new version of CP4D, we created two new operators. The first one, we call it Informix CP4D operator, but the real name is IBM Informix Operator extension for IBM Cloud App for Data. Is used to install the Informix service into a CP4D instance. It is written in Ansible, which is what other CP4D operators use. This one replaces the assembly and module install method. You use CPD CLI, used in previous 3.0 and 3.5 version of our service. The second operator, Informix Operator, the proper name IBM Informix, is in charge of deploying Informix and all these components. This one is the one that does all the heavy lifting. So we decided to use Go rather than Ansible, and as this gives us more control over the API and how the operator runs. In previous versions of our CP4D service, we had everything running in just one pod. The engine, the connection manager, the wire listener, they were all running on the same container. In 4.0, we decided to separate each component in its own container, creating microservices, which provides more flexibility and redundancy. The only role for the Informix CP4D operator is to install and uninstall the Informix service within CP4D. This operator extends the API with a new Informix service CR. You can install the Informix service into CP4D by creating one Informix service object. The only info that you need to provide is the namespace of your CP4D instance. You can see the syntax on the right-hand side. As soon as one of these objects is created, the operator will do all the steps required to register the Informix service, and when the reconcile job completes, the Informix type will be visible in the CP4D UI console. Our second operator, Informix Operator, is in charge of deploying Informix into the cluster. It provides the following APIs: Informix, which represents an Informix instance; Informix CM, which is used to run the connection manager; Informix Monitor, which runs the admin console. We have the option to run HQ or the new Informix Data Management Console, DMC. But inside CP4D, we always run with DMC. W listeners, which runs all the wire listeners, REST, MongoDB, and MQTT. And finally, the Informix CP4D API, which is used to integrate with other CP4D services. To deploy an Informix instance with just one server, you can create an Informix CR by running the following command. This CR has more attributes than the one listed here. These are just the required one. As you can see, you need to specify the storage type and if you want encryption or not, and the Docker image for the engine. After installing the service into CP4D, the Informix style will be visible in the service catalog page. You can find it in the data source section of the catalog. If you click on the Informix style, it will take you to the service details page, which look like this. From here, if you click the three dots icons on the right-hand side and choose New Instance, it will launch the instance creation page. The screenshot that you can see on the left is part of the DMC, it's the dashboard. The first thing that you have to do when creating an Informix instance from the CP4D UI is to give a name and choose a namespace for your server. After that, you can go to the configuration page. Here you can specify how many servers you want to have in your instance. By default, it will create 2 servers, a primary and an updatable secondary. And you can also specify how much memory and nodes your instance will use. The next sections are used to configure the storage. In this version of CP4D, we decided to split the storage used by the instance into shared data and backup. Here you can select how that storage is going to be used. You can either provide the name of an existing PVC and persistent volume claim, or you can specify the storage class and the size and let the operator to create the PVC for you. You see at the bottom, you also have the option to put everything in just one PVC. It is not ideal, but it is easier when you need to provision a big instance. That way you can just ignore the data and backup sections. So the data and the backup are similar to the share. The last section displays a summary of the choices and lets you to create the instance. When you click the Create button, CP4D will create all the custom resources needed to form an Informix HA instance. You can see those CRs in this screenshot. You will have an Informix CM, Informix Monitor, Wire Listener, and a CP4D API. The name of all the CRs starts with Informix, followed by a 16-digit random number used to identify the service within CP4D. The first command, OCGet Informixes, Informix CNs, Monitor, Wire Listener, Informix API, lists all the new CRs. The second command, OCGet Deployment Stateful Set, lists all the resources that the operator created to reconcile the CR. By default, you get 3 deployments, one for CP4D API, one for the monitor, and one for the wire listener running to both, and then 2 stateful sets, one running Connection Manager and one running the server, each one with 2 pods. To get details about any Informix instance or access the DMC console, go to the main CP4D instance page. Basic information like the state of your instance or how much memory or CPU is currently used is listed here. If you click in the instance name, it will take you to the details page for that particular instance. Here you can get information like which parameters you used during the provision, or you can download the SSL certificates needed to be able to connect to the instance. If you go out and click on the Open, it will take you to the DMC. As I mentioned before, the DMC is our admin console. It's similar to HQ, but running using the same Carbon X that CP4D uses. The DMC is covering another IIUG presentation, so if you want to know more about it, I suggest to attend that one. I mentioned before that the whole point of an operator is to extend the capabilities of Kubernetes. So we can use those as a CP4D. The Informix Operator gives you 5 new custom resources, which you can use to create new Informix HA clusters. Provisioning from the CP4D UI will give you a full Informix set, server, CM, wire listener, monitor, and CP4D API, which is useful, but in some cases, you might want to be more specific. Maybe you want a quick small server for doing some basic tests. The way you can do that is by creating individual Informix CRs. You can do it from the OpenCV console or from the command line. From the console, as shown here, you can go to the operator, install operators, and then choose the Informix operator. Here you will see the list of APIs the operator provides, and you have the option to create individual objects. All the CR attributes will be listed here with a small description of what they are used for. You can also create a CR from the command line. As you see in this screenshot, we created an Informix server using a YAML file, which declares a new Informix CR named Informix sample. After that, we get the state of the CR running OC get Informixes. The Informix server health column shows red because the server is still doing the initialization. The one with the big number corresponds to the instance that we created from the CP4D UI. The last command, OC get pod stateful set, shows the Kubernetes objects created by the Informix operator when it did the reconcile of the new CR. You get one stateful set with one pod, which is currently doing the initialization. Here you can see that the state of our Informix sample has already changed to green. It says age 25 minutes, but it takes less than that. Usually it's around 4 or 5 minutes, depending on the storage class selected in the CR. The Informix CM health column shows red because we didn't create an Informix CM object. We only did an Informix one. Now we can connect to the Informix server going directly to the pod that we are showing here with running on stat or DB access, or you can connect it from the site. We can also easily scale up the Informix instance by changing the replica property in the CR. We are using OC patch to change the replica from 1 to 3. The Informix operator will detect that we want 3 replicas instead of 1 and will automatically scale up the stateful set to have 3 pods. The pods will be created sequentially using IFS clone to sync with the server. The last 2 commands shows the output of an onstat command running on the newly created servers. You get 1 secondary and 1 RSS. This is what we are planning for the next version. We want to integrate with more IBM Cloudback services, services like the IBM Identity and Access Management to provide a single sign-on experience, or the login and audit services to allow CP4D users to see all the Informix events directly from the CP4D console. We plan to release an Informix standalone operator. This will give us more visibility as the operator will be in the marketplace, and there will be no need to install the IBM operator catalog. It will have no dependency to CP4D services, no need to have CP4D at all. And all the images will be stored in the IBM free repository, the icr.io cp open. Currently, only the operand and catalog images are there. To be able to get the operand images, the ones like the Informix server or CM, you need to have access to the IBM Untitled registry. We also plan to improve both operators. We want to upgrade to the latest operator SDK. The operator SDK is the framework used to build operators. We want to simplify the setup process. So right now you have to install 2 operators. So we want the Informix CP4D operator to check if the Informix operator is already installed in the cluster, and if not, install it for you. And we want to have more application logic within the operator itself. We want to be able to automate tasks like scaling or backups. And of course, we want to implement any good suggestions that you can give to us. As I tried to show you today, the new service and Informix operator helps Informix to move a little bit closer to the ideal cloud. We try to make it as friendly as possible to both worlds, on-prem and cloud, which is the whole point of hybrid cloud. Users can keep their existing application as they are and just move the Informix database to cloud, but they also have the option to develop new applications using modern languages and APIs like Go, Node.js, or REST. Also, being on CP4D means that you can link your Informix database with other CP4D services like data virtualization or Watson AI and get more value from your data. The Informix operator gives you a quick and easy way to deploy Informix servers, which is something ideal for something like automate jobs in your CI/CD pipelines. It is flexible. It gives you the option to add or remove Informix components based on your individual needs, and it brings out-of-the-box security. All the communication are encrypted by default with encryption and REST also switched on. It also gives you double resiliency. You have both the resiliency that you usually get with any Kubernetes application and the one provided by Informix HA. So all in all, we believe that is quite good offer. So that's all. I hope you find it useful as a quick introduction of what Informix CP4D is. We are ready for any of your questions or comments. Feel free to ask whatever you want.
You guys see the chat, Jan and Javier and Karen? Can you see the chat, or do I need to read out the chat?
I can see the chat. Javier, do you?
Yes, I can see the chat. I'm just reading that question about Rancher. So right now, no, we are only working on OpenShift. We are planning to, yeah, as soon as we have the operator and as soon as we are, we got the standalone operator out, then they maybe try to bring that to into a Docker container that will be able to use even outside OpenShift.
Yeah, and Rancher is one of those that are on our list to look at. That seems to be a popular one.
Yes.
So the next question, which Informix version onwards we can use with this implementation? So with every container release, we put in there whatever the latest version of the server is. So with this release that just happened today, 14.10 XE6 is there. Probably when we do the next version of the container, XE7 will be in there. So that is how it will get updated with the latest and greatest as we release those.
And I don't know if you saw the next question, kind of open-ended. How about licensing?
How about licensing? Yeah, that one. That one I know that we covered in the licensing review this morning. I actually don't know much about the licensing side of it, so I will have to get back to you on that one.
What I'm aware of the licensing, it's possible to upgrade from the current version if the current version is migrated to PVC processor, processor core value, VPC, virtual processor core, sorry. And there's the possible upgrade, or you can buy your own licenses Informix cartridge, where Informix cartridge contains the possibility to run your current Informix outside CloudPack for data, and additional, you receive the license for CloudPack for data and OpenShift, but in this case, you are not allowed to run anything else on OpenShift than CloudPack for data plus the basic base services. So with Informix cartridge, you can run your current Informix on-prem, for example, and use base services from CloudPack for data, and you have the possibility to migrate part of the licensing from on-prem to CloudPack. in generally say. Yeah, and it's true that the conversion ratio is 70 PVU to 1 VPC, as Scott is writing to the chat.
Thank you, Jan. Yes, that's correct. Is with the dual entitlement modernization upgrade, you get the ability to keep your on-prem and then modernize as you need to, using the cartridge and the containers. So you don't have to just drop your on-prem and buy the new. It's a dual entitlement offering.
We saw Scott's entry in there about 70 PVUs to 1. I don't know if that.
I think it's the general conversion ratio also for all other products which are also VPC. So it's not only Informix, but it's also for other IBM products is this ratio.
That's correct, and that's actually the conversion to 1410 as well, where the VPC metric is used. So from 1210 to 1410, you'd use that same. Okay, we have another question. How easy to upgrade any existing 1210 non-containerized live server to containerized version?
One thing which I did is the possibility that you can connect to containerized Informix via DB access, because during my session on Thursday, I demonstrate how to get the connection information to Informix running Cloudpack. So you can simply connect via DB access, for example, and load the data by normally unload or load to table from unload file. Is one way. The second way is that you are able to connect to the pod where server is running, and there are shared storages where you can move DBX4 pod, for example, and you can use DB import inside the server pod to populate your database in the Cloudpack. It's currently the way what I'm aware of how to migrate from existing version to the new one. And I believe that between version 12 and 14 there is compatibility. So regarding DB export, DB import shouldn't be there any problem.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Jan and Carlton and Scott, for helping to answer the questions. And you too, Javier.
All right, thanks, y'all. Karen, if you've nothing else to say, we get to go home early. Oh, wait, we're already home.
No, actually, I'm
Maybe
in the office.
sorry, there's another one unanswered question, how you can monitor Kubernetes cluster. So in this case, OpenShift has a graphical interface for monitoring of the cluster as is. And from Informix perspective, you have the standard monitoring tools. You have the new Informix data management console, and it's possible also activate HQ as well. So the monitoring of Informix is normal, as you know, from on-prem Informix, and OpenShift cluster can be monitored by graphical interface, which is a part of the OpenShift solution.
There's another one.
Yes, regarding the PVCs. Yeah, during the provision, you have the option to select existing PVC, or you can specify and specify the type of storage that you want to use and the size. PVC, we support basically whatever you have in your cluster, OCS, Portworx, or NFS. So those are the main three that are mainly supported in the whole cloud path for data. But basically, we use whatever you have. We try Rook, and it also works quite well. But yeah, you have several options to use. And as I say, you have the option. If you don't have if you are limited to what you can do, you can always ask your admin to create a PVC for you, and then you can specify that PVC claim during the provision, or put that in the Informix Cr, and it will use that space. I think that Portworx will be the fastest, at least for the one that we tested.
I'm aware of Portworx is some analogy for devices, so NFS will be the slowest one.
Yes, NFS is definitely the slowest one. We also tested that. Yes, you can do it because you can specify the PVC for the backup. You can, and they have, it can be different and the type can be different than the one used for data and for logs, for share and for data. Then you can just put your backups and they can go to your PVC, which will use, for example, NFS, and then you will have access to external access to the backups.
Anybody else? Last chance.
For the slow typers out there.
See that one, y'all?
So any customers using the solution right now? I do know of a few customers that are doing proof of concepts with it. Scott or Carlton, do you know of anybody? Yeah, that's from Scott's reply. A number are in various stages of evaluation. That's exactly right. We have some uptake, but they're evaluating, yeah. No official references at this point that we can use, though.
Maybe to say that this version implementation 4 is from today or a few days. It's also very young, but compared to the previous version implementation 3.5 or 3.0 is absolutely new quality with operators. So this implementation version 4 is absolutely different and huge quality compared to the previous implementations. So I would recommend to the customers wait for this version in Cloud Pack for Data 4 for the implementation and for POCs.
Yeah, 402, yeah, 402 in theory was released yesterday. So
That's right. It's definitely out there as of today. We got confirmation. So just in time for this call. So for the slides, John, are they going to be posted somewhere? Or is it just the recordings that are going to be out there for everybody?
Slides will be somewhere, but I
Okay.
don't know where.
Great.
If you want any questions, conference@iiug.org. That gets your email to about 10 people, one of which should be able to answer your question. Conference@iiug.org.
Thanks, Kevin. Yes, the documentation has not been refreshed yet to show the 4.02 release, 4.0.2 release. That's in the works as we speak. That's on the IBM side. We're working with them closely. Okay. Is there a test version? There you go. See, Scott.
I'll leave it to you, Karen. You're the boss.
Okay. Well, I will end the call here then, and you know where we are if you have any questions. So just please reach out. Would love to hear from you, especially if you're interested in trying this out. Much appreciated. Thank you, Javier. Thank you, Jan, and Scott and Carlton.
Thanks to all. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you
Bye.
tomorrow morning.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Take care, y'all.